Scales and Pages. Written by Nikolai Weiskopf. Read for you by Adam R. Watson. Story 8. The Immortal Ambition. Part 2. Valstus heard Lensara's ranting before they entered the chamber. Their enchantment didn't let whole words escape, but they could make out colorful syllables. Demon, this brainless Valstus stopped to grit their fangs at the ear-stabbing scrapes in their ears. Spectral chains didn't rattle like their iron cousins, but magic straining against magic inflicted a unique, torturous grind. "Bad book, mad," Gruffbark said, as he popped out of the facet to share his usual, obvious wisdom. And she's about to get madder. Please, stay in your facet until I say it's safe, Valstus said, with enough growl that Gruffbark simply nodded and popped back into the gemstone library. Valstus let their claws tap on the last stone steps, and Lensara quieted. Before we begin, I must ask if any of those adjectives are correct. Then what would you call the arrogant, disgraced academic spectre with delusions of grandeur? Valstus finished with a flick of their claws. Several chains faded into ether. Every academic must face the consequences of their choices. Clearly mine was speaking too honestly. I will adjust my statements to better respect your delusions, Lensara answered. At the risk of wasting my valuable immortality on this conversation, do tell what delusions you think I indulge, Valstus asked, a quick thought undoing the remaining spectral chains, allowing the obnoxiously possessed grimoire to fall cover first onto the table. For a few moments there was only muffled indignation. Eventually her spectral grey hands lifted her until she faced Valstus again. There are too many to list, but I will enlighten you to the worst. For starters, your baffling belief that you have any chance of thwarting Arceus' plans without me, which is exceeded only by the ludicrous belief that your library will serve any purpose beyond war and commerce. Finally, the thought that any dregs riding your scales will help. They are comical at best, and impede you at worst, Lensara said, finishing her points with a tisking that shouldn't have been possible without a tongue or mouth. I am comfortable with determination and optimism as delusions. You should know that without Gruffbark's help, I wouldn't be here, and you'd still be trapped in darkness. Valstus responded, and began walking around the edge of the mausoleum chamber. And yet nothing will protect you against the undead hordes Arceus will unleash, Lensara snapped. Vizirath's skull will kill him before it shares anything, Valstus fired back, remembering the last time they tried to read it, and the skeletal grimoire nearly consumed their mind. And if he allowed it to continue experimenting in exchange? Lensara asked. Her spectral hands slowly turned her, keeping up with Valstus. The dragon narrowed its silver eyes at the arrogant grimoire with a point. Vizirath did not begin as a necromancer. The needs of his kingdom excused his gluttony for knowledge, dooming him down that path. His death saved Idrine, but every mage's legacy is their grimoire. Each one was unique because all were influenced by their mage. The whole time Valstus had watched over the skull, it only awoke when a new grimoire joined their horde. Arceus' arrogance and the greed of Vizirath's grimoire collaborating painted a terrifying picture. When, where, and how are they doing this? Valstus asked, ending their silent contemplation. And let you leave me behind? Absolutely not, Lensara answered, her cover opening and snapping shut in defiance. I haven't decided what I'm doing with you yet, Valstus said, and started walking towards Lensara. No, but I know what you won't do, she said. Another grey hand appeared floating alongside Valstus. You won't destroy me, because it goes against your instincts and idealism that all knowledge can serve a greater good. The grey hand raised a finger before Lensara continued. You won't leave me behind because I am part of your horde. Another finger rose. You won't imprison me because I am as much a victim as you are. A third finger came up, which leaves only one possibility. I am coming with you. She finished. Valstus stopped at the table's edge, took off the gemstone library, rolled it in their hands until they found the facet for research. A moment of focus showed them it wasn't buried in books, and they made their choice. All true, but not as limiting as you might think. Valstus said with a smile that showed all their thanks. Before Lensara could answer, they took her by the spine while their other hand held onto the facet and thought the words. By blood and magic, we are one. Grimoire and dragon turned to light and entered the gemstone library. How dare you transmogrify me without warning? Lensara wailed, her pages rustling furiously. And put me down before your scales scratch me, or I swear you will... She continued demanding, but no grey hands appeared. The silence stretched until Valstus placed her on a nearby table, leaning her against other books. How am I inside a nexus of magic, and I can't even... Lensara asked aloud, interrupted herself, and continued immediately. Because it's your nexus. That's why it took you so many years to make this, Lensara finished, her awe and envy echoing against glass beakers and steel tools. Correct. Every time I tried using external magic, things ended explosively, Valstus explained. Memories of fire, light, and gem shards blooming in all directions threatened to destroy their hoard. They shook off the memory and refocused on Lensara. Before we begin, you should know this is one of the few facets no one else can enter without my consent. Valstus stopped explaining when Lensara sighed with disgust. Yes, I am powerless. You are powerful. I am alone, and no one is coming to rescue me. Please get on with your questions and spare me the theatrics, she demanded. How do you know what he's planning? Valstus asked, and crossed their arms, prepared to sort through her lies. Because he only kept the grimoires about life and death. He scattered the rest across Idrine, Lensara answered without hesitation. Valstus took a slow, deliberate breath to stop themselves from roaring in frustration. Logically, they knew this journey would take months, perhaps a few years, but Lensara's revelation easily turned that into decades. If that's true, why would he abandon you? Valstus asked, hoping they'd found something that would prove Lensara a liar. Her cover flapped, and a papery chuckle filled the facet. Because I wouldn't let him read me, she answered, and flipped through multiple pages. Some were blank. Others had words out of order. If you could always do this, why did you let me read you? Valstus demanded, re-examining every word they could remember. Because you were polite, Lensara answered casually, snapping her pages shut. And? Valstus demanded, refusing to believe manners were the only reason. And in exchange, you could help me find a vessel, Lensara admitted.
Valstus sighed until their wings untucked and drooped to the floor. Lensara's answers made too much sense to be lies. There were many more questions they wanted to ask, but the most important came first. "Where did you last see Arceus Magistoris?" Valstus asked, preparing themselves for an outrageous list of demands.
"His tower, in the mountains of the Unseen Academy," Lensara answered immediately.
Silent seconds stretched into silent minutes. It was the most obvious answer and the easiest lie. Valstus's urge to scream and roar drowned in an avalanche of questions in their head.
"How much time did you waste? Why didn't you check there first? What did Arceus learn from Viscerath's skull? When will you stop overthinking everything?"
Channeling the inner storm of emotions into the magic in them and around them, every witchlight torch dimmed in the rising winds.
"Don't waste my time,"
Valstus growled, and the entire facet shook with the thunder in their voice. Lensara fell over, cover first, and started shouting defensively into the table. Valstus flicked a clawed hand, not trusting themselves to pick up the grimoire, and a lash of wind flipped her over.
I don't know if he's still there, but that's where he was," Lensara explained, trying and failing to shut her cover. "And if it were me, I wouldn't leave it," she continued, voice barely rising above the winds.
"Explain," Valstus commanded, and dispelled the rising storm.
"Because he and I are academics. Give us the choice of a well-supplied fortress or a life on the run, and where do you think is the better place to do our work?" Lensara answered, and snapped her cover shut.
Without the storm, the silver witchlight torches filled the facet with light again.
"I hope that my answers have earned me appropriate consideration," she said, breaking the silence.
"They've earned you a place in the library, and enough freedom that I won't seal you in silence and darkness," Valstus snapped, gnashing their fangs at the unsubtle, open-ended demand.
"Your generosity is as vast as your hoard," Lensara cooed with obsequious sarcasm.
Before Valstus could answer, a consistent knocking echoed into the facet.
"Valstus inside?"
A small, curious voice whispered in between knocks.
"Such a shame that a magical marvel is infested with pests," Lensara sniped.
Valstus snarled intent and cast spectral bindings on Lensara. The sapphire scale embedded in the grimoire's spine shone in answer. "That will limit your internal magics. Use your hands for anything but movement, and I will strip you bare." They snapped, and thought themselves outside the facet before the grimoire could answer. They saw Cloud Chaser and Gruffbark standing at the crystalline door.
"Maybe Dragon Boss busy,"
Gruffbark said, laying a twiggy hand on Cloud Chaser's head.
"A tribe needs know their plan,"
the younger tree folk insisted. Valstus took shape behind them. "Your sapling has a point," they said, and tried not to smirk as both of the tree folk jumped in surprise. "We are flying to the Unseen Academy," they explained.
"Who learns there?"
Cloud Chaser asked, his blue crystal eyes shining with anticipation. "Walk with me, and tell me what you both know about shadow magic," they said.
"Mages move through darkness. Oldest mages become leeches. All dangerous,"
Gruffbark answered, crossing his arms while his mossy hair bristled.
"I only know what First Root said,"
Cloud Chaser piped in, their knotted face looking between, waiting to hear more. "Gruffbark is accurate, but they prefer to be called vampires," Valstus explained, as they walked all the while, planning the next flight of their journey. We thank you for listening to this story. Creating the dragons, books, and magic and shenanigans has been a joy. Find more of Nikolai's stories and Adam's content in the links enclosed. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced in any form or by an electronic or mechanical means, including information storage and retrieval systems, without permission in writing from the publisher, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review. No generative artificial intelligence, AI, was used in the writing of this work. The author and narrator expressly prohibit any entity from using this publication for purposes of training AI technologies to generate text, audio, video, including without limitation technologies that are capable of generating works in the same style or genre as this publication. The author reserves all rights to license uses of this work for generative AI training and development of machine learning language models.